Welcome. This is the Lifetime Cashflow through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is where you'll learn strategies to help you achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host, Riyad Khleif, has owned over 2,000 homes and apartments, and he brings experts in all aspects of real estate investment and management onto the show. Now, here's your host, Riyad Khleif.
So I have a couple of housekeeping things for you guys. If you haven't heard, we are now at 1.2 million downloads for this podcast. And I just am so grateful for you guys listening and the positive feedback that we get from you. And over the last year, I've spoken with or communicated with literally almost 1,000 of you, and it has been awesome. Now, lots of you have asked me for coaching and mentoring or, to create a course or some training materials. And I had no plans to do that when I started this podcast. But finally, after so many of you asked, I finally decided to go ahead and do it. And I will tell you, I'm close to launching an incredible course and coaching program. And I want to help you guys crush it in this business and build lifetime cash flow quickly. So if you want to get information on this, text the word crush to 41411 and we'll be sure to send you information when it becomes available. And if any of you have read my book, you realize I don't do things halfway. So when I tell you that it's awesome, it really is awesome. So excited to get that out. But also want to mention the book is still free. I'm finalizing it on Amazon. I was waiting for some testimonials from some other luminaries in the real estate space, and I've gotten them, and I'm just putting the finishing touches on it. So, every review I've gotten for that book has been great. If you haven't gotten your free copy, make sure you do that. Text ROD to 41411 or go to rodkhleif.com. All right, let's get to it. Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Riyad Khleif, and I'm thrilled you're here. And I know you're going to get a ton of value from the gentleman we're interviewing today. His name's Andrew Campbell, and he and his brother Mark own 72 units in San Antonio and Austin, Texas, and over $6 million portfolio. They've done it in a fairly short period of time, and they've done it while they both kept their jobs, which I know is going to resonate with a lot of you guys, full-time corporate jobs. Thanks for being on the show, Andrew.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. So please expand on my introduction, my very limited introduction, and please talk about how you got into real estate, why you got into real estate, and then we'll dig into some of your deals.
Sure. Yeah, we did not grow up in a real estate household and didn't have any realtors or investors. It was just always sort of a curiosity for us. I'd be the kid that would pick up the flyer, when we were on vacation about the different houses and looking at how much things were worth. And so I was always interested in it, but I hadn't taken action on being an investor, really understanding what it meant to be an investor. And we were just living our life, and I was 27 years old and had a corporate job, like you mentioned. I was living out of state and got a phone call that my dad had a major stroke and a brain hemorrhage. And I moved home, and he ended up being in the hospital for several months. And it was a critical point in my life and my brother's life, where kind of questioning what we were doing and not having the flexibility. I ultimately had to quit my job to move home, and realizing that maybe the corporate path isn't something that we want to do, and we need to create some flexibility, both time and resource wise, so that we can tackle challenges that life throws at us.
Right.
So we kind of talked about investing and dabbled in it. I had a condo that I was living in, and I'd gotten married, and we kept the condo and sort of accidental landlorded that for a while. And then a couple of years later, in 2011, our mom was diagnosed with cancer and ultimately lost her battle. And I think that was for us like the straw that broke the camel's back, and really gave us the purpose and the mission that, hey, this is something that this real estate investing is the vehicle for us. It's going to give us the ultimate flexibility to help us take care of our dad, take care of our families, and to have the time in order to do the things that we want to do in life. And so that was when we got really serious about investing, and I think took it as a challenge and as a viable career path. That's something, hey, we're going to attack this, full head on.
Right. It was both those tragedies that caused you to push forward. And you did it so you'd have more freedom and you'd have more financial resources so that you'd be able to provide for your family. That's the reason?
Yeah, it was, looking at not wanting to necessarily follow his path. Our dad was a really successful businessman, but, had normal businessman hours, and realizing we need the time, and wanted the time and the flexibility to do the things we wanted to do or needed to do. And, something came up like this again, be able to, not sweat taking several months off or having that passive income to handle, whatever life would throw at us.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, that's quite an intro there. Let's get into real estate. When did you? And let me tell you, the reason that I'm a little reeling myself is my brother had a heart attack yesterday, and I want to share this with everybody listening, actually, because there's a message here. He doesn't like doctors. Hadn't seen one in 15 years, and he is at his local REIA meeting and has indigestion and just has heartburn. And so he goes next door to the store and buys Tums, and that they didn't do any good. And he's sitting in his car, and he just didn't feel right. And he got tingling in his arms, and it wasn't painful, but it was tingling, and he just didn't feel right. And then he started sweating real bad. And so luckily there was an urgent care place a block away, and he drove there and he walked in, and within 5 minutes they had him in an ambulance to the hospital. And luckily I literally work 5 minutes from that hospital, so I was able to go there and see him go into surgery. And it was just really pretty traumatic. And his wife, they've been married for 40 years. They met when they were 15, and they were a massive love story, an incredible love story. And so, it was really tough while he was in surgery, but because he didn't ignore his symptoms, within an hour and a half, he had called me at 2:06, and I was actually on a podcast interview when he called. And of course, I turn everything off when I'm doing an interview. And so he couldn't reach me, because, even before he went to the urgent care, he tried to call me, and then they interrupted me, and I went to the hospital, and I was able to see him before he went into surgery. But thank be to the Lord, or, whatever you believe in, that he got 2 stents put in, and he's going to be okay. But the message here, and the reason I spent so much time on this is, guys, we are all high achievers. We are all pushing hard. We all have stress. And if you have symptoms, don't back away from them. Don't ignore them or just suck it up or just assume it's gas or indigestion or whatever. Go get checked, because if he hadn't gotten checked, he might not be with us today. The doctor said he did everything right. So anyway, I want to interject that and hopefully add value to the guys listening, because it's just so important not to ignore that stuff. So,
well, I think that's great. I'm glad to hear he's going to be all right.
Yeah, thank you.
That's scary.
Yeah, thank you. It was scary. He's actually still there now. He's doing much better. They're going to move him to a regular room, and he's only 2 people allowed in the ICU, and he's got his direct family there right now. So I'll be heading back over there after the interview, but very scary. So guys, don't ignore the symptoms, I guess is my point, and get checked out if you need to get checked out. So, but anyway, shake that stuff off, and let's talk about real estate. So tell us about
the good stuff.
Yeah, let's get to the good stuff. So tell us about your first deal.
Yeah, so I qualify our first deal as the first intentional investments that we made. I mentioned I had a condo that we were kind of accidental landlording.
Right.
We just kept when we got married. So after my mom passed, we realized we're going to do this thing for real. My brother had a house that he had moved out of state and had also been accidental landlording. We sold his house and my condo. And then that was our first investment properties. We used the capital from those to buy. So we had a little bit different strategies. He bought 5 foreclosed homes in a suburb just south of Austin, single families.
When was this? I'm sorry if you said it already.
It was all about 2012.
Okay, got it.
So he bought, probably averaged like $130,000, something like that. I think were the kind of the average price of his. And we bought, my wife and I bought a 4-plex and a duplex within the same month, much closer into town in Austin.
Okay. Do you still have the houses, or is your portfolio all multifamily?
No, we still have the houses. There's of the 72 units, about a dozen of them are single family. I think they're looking at probably selling those this year. I think we've migrated completely in the mindset and every other way towards multifamily, and seen some really good run on appreciation on the houses. So, but today we still have them.
Yeah, no, perfect time to sell those houses. Actually, that's great. So. Let me ask you this, your plexes that you're buying, how did you finance them?
So it's all been traditional, personal financing. I think, one of the benefits of us working and having our jobs, it's been easier to get traditional financing. We get the 30-year fixed loans, and that's obviously helps us with the cash flow. So that's to date been the path we've taken.
So primarily Fannie Mae financing then?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Now we're at that inflection point of we've maxed out on the loans we can get. So we've got to change strategies.
See, what a perfect framework for you guys listening. I mean, they're up to 72 units. I don't know how many of them are plexes, but how many are plexes? Let's ask the question.
Other than the 12, so I guess we've got 60 doors spread across 4plexes and duplexes. I'm not sure what the exact count on each type is.
And I think the limit on Fannie Mae is it's either 10 or 12 per person. Is that do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, we've 10 is the number we've been given and worked really hard to get to.
Okay. Well,
I think a lot of people will stop. A lot of brokers kind of stop at 3 or 4 and can't seem to get you over the hump. But if you keep hunting around, you'll find somebody that's able to get you all the way to the 10.
Wow, fantastic! And you're right. This is an inflection point because you're not going to be able to get that fantastic residential financing any longer. But what a great opportunity for you to go larger. I mean, you understand the business now, and if you go to 5 units, then you can get commercial financing, and you can get commercial financing, I guess, on your residential as well if you put a couple of them together. But this is a good pivot point, and I assume you're looking at larger things now. Or I shouldn't assume, but I guess that you are.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think that's been our mindset of it's. We've taken this as far as we can. We've kind of maximized those great 30-year fixed rates.
Right.
And so now we're looking at commercial financing, so we could do a 4-unit, an 8-unit, or an 80-unit. And our mindset is, then let's go look at 80 units, 150 units, and how we can get those done, raise money, and take everything we've learned and go that route.
Right. And I know you're exploring syndication now, and your website is wildhorncap.com. Capital entity to raise money for syndications. That's fantastic. And those of you listening, and I'll say this to you as well, Andrew, on commercial financing right now, because we're headed for a contraction, there's no question it's coming. Doesn't mean to stop looking or stop buying. I'm actively buying right now, but I'd be careful on how long of a balloon you agree to. I wouldn't recommend doing a 5-year balloon right now. I would do 7 or 10 years because there's nothing worse than having a property that's cash flowing, but because the cap rates have gone up because of a market crash, your values aren't there to be able to refinance if you're at the bottom of a cycle when your balloon comes due. So just a word of advice on the commercial financing. But you sound like you guys have really moved forward. And let me back up. Are you managing these properties yourself, or do you have a management company handling them since you're working full-time? How are you handling that?
It's about a 50-50 split. A couple of years ago, we started out self-managing. We decided to experiment with some property managers. Number one, we wanted to see, how much did we like giving up the control, or how much didn't we like it, and what was that experience like? And we've trying out a couple of different property managers to see their styles and how they communicate. And I think we're contemplating starting a management company, particularly as we grow a syndication business.
Sure.
And just using that as a way to leverage, and see how they do business, and do we like how they do business.
Oh, very smart. And I highly recommend starting your own management company. I've had one for decades, and there are just a lot of reasons why it works very, very well.
Yeah.
Now, that said, I've had people on the show that swear by outside management. I'm a big proponent of self-management. When I say self-management, have your own management company, because I've just found in my personal experience that I've had to manage the management companies. But that said, if you get into the larger properties, there are some extraordinarily good property management companies out there that can add a lot of value to you, not just in the management process, but helping you find deals and helping you with the due diligence on a larger property and things of that nature. But in the smaller, and I think you're going to find, or maybe already finding out, that the management companies that will handle duplexes and fourplexes, they're fairly, what's the word? I wouldn't say unsophisticated, but they're not as sophisticated, I guess is the word, as some of the larger companies that really handle big properties. And if you get a good person that is running a smaller management company, you can have a decent experience. Mm-hmm. But anyway, what markets are you looking in now, may I ask?
Yeah, we continue we grew up in Austin and feel pretty fortunate, the way that this city has blossomed to be located here. So we still look in Austin. Everything we bought recently in the last 2 years has been in San Antonio, but we are looking, Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston. I think anything that's in Texas, makes sense for us, but that's kind of our geographic boundaries.
Sure. I think that as hot as the market is right now, you probably have better luck in some of the second-tier cities around those large cities. And I will say this, if you guys haven't heard me say it on the podcast before, I really believe that there's a sweet spot in the smaller properties right now, even as low as 30, 40 units. There's some real opportunities because those properties are owned by mom and pops, and there are opportunities for seller financing. Those aren't getting hit as hard by the big players that are fighting over the larger properties right now. But, if you can find a great deal on a larger property, the interest rates are fantastic, and there's still a lot of opportunity out there. Just pay attention to cash flow. I get people sending me deals all the time, and they tell me, yeah, well, this deal sold for X million so many years ago, and we can get it for this. And I come back with, it doesn't matter. What's the NOI? What's your debt service coverage ratio? That's what really matters.
I think that's something that, we started out relatively unsophisticated, right? Starting not totally knowing what we were doing, but this is a passive income play for us. It has to cash flow, and didn't know about necessarily ratios and, how much expense money to set aside, but we knew what the rents were going to be, and we knew what we were paying for and what our payment was going to be.
Right.
And so it's always been for us, if it doesn't cash flow, we're not interested in it. And even today, particularly in Austin, there's so many people betting on appreciation. And that's just not a game that we've ever played. And it's hard to stay disciplined when you're in a market that's blowing up like this and you see what people are paying. But it's cash flow. I agree with what you say. It's got to cash flow. It's not a business.
No, it's not. And particularly with the fact that real estate goes through cycles, and we're at the top of one. Mm-hmm. So you do not want to do any value plays right now. Trust me. It's all based on cash flow. So let me ask you this. Did you have any mentors you guys started with the smaller stuff, which is a lot less intimidating, but have you had mentors or training or anything that you could suggest to someone about how you learned the business, or did you guys just go out there and do it?
No, we absolutely did. And I think one of my favorite things about the business is that it's a community of people that really, want to help other people and share what they've learned. When we got into it and got serious about it, we had a friend who's a realtor who had, 5 or 6 duplexes, small multis, and really kind of, talked us through it, what we should be looking for, actually helped us buy the first couple deals. And really, we drafted off of his team and his playbook, and he taught us everything he knows. And, we joke that when we bought our first property, he says to me that watch out, but investing in real estate is like crack and you'll get addicted. And I talk to him all the time. And I think, this whole thing is your fault. I was heading down a path. I was doing advertising and loving it. And he's got me addicted to real estate now. And so we partnered with him and learned the business from him. And then as we've grown into the syndication business, learning from folks that have been doing that and actively partnering with them on as we look at and buy bigger deals.
Oh, no, that's very smart. Super. Let me ask you this. Any books that you like to gift to people about this business or about business in general?
Yeah, I think that the standard ones, right? I think, when we were going through everything with our dad, we read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that's just such a fundamental shift in the way you think and look at the world that I think it's a good book that always, I actually went to lunch today with a guy who's interested in real estate. And I said, that just changes your mindset. So I'd always recommend that one. I think the Millionaire Real Estate Investor, Gary Keller's book, was probably the first tactical book that made sense to me. And I recommend that one a lot. So those are the two. And I know you hear those all the time, but they're famous for a reason, I think.
Oh, no question. And Gary Keller's The One Thing is, or That One Thing, or I'm not sure of the title, but that's also a fantastic book. Yeah, I've been trying forever to get him on the show. He'd be a great interview. Let's see. Let me ask you this question. This is one I like to ask, and you may or may not know I do these little 5 to 10 minute weekly clips called Your Driving Force Success Tips, and we talk about the psychology of success because 80% of your success in anything really is your mindset and your psychology. What's driving you now? Is it? I guess we did kind of talk about it. It's the freedom. What makes you jump out of bed in the morning?
When we started out, it was the freedom, and it was wanting, passive income and flexibility. And now what drives me is, seeing how far we can take this thing, that we've back to it being crack. We're addicted. We love the business. We understand it. And it's something that we can do together and build, as a team and build a company. And so I think that's what's getting us out of bed right now is,
right.
We're going to build Wildhorn Capital into a business, and that's awesome. We're trading, one job for another, but it's something that we're very passionate about.
Well, if you love what you do, work is play, and that's why I always say, make sure if you're going to do this, you associate pleasure with it. I equate it to hunting for treasure, and it really is, and it's just so much fun, especially when when you're doing more than one deal, and the wheels are turning, and there's lots of deals coming across your desk, and you're out there, mixing it up, looking at deals. It's just, for me, it's definitely like crack cocaine, whatever that feels like. So,
yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: what would you tell somebody that's listening right now, thinking about getting into real estate, maybe has a little fear? What advice would you give them if you went and had lunch with them?
Yeah, number one, I always tell partner. Find somebody, myself or somebody in your local area that does this. Go on Bigger Pockets. There's great resources there, but find a partner or a mentor. And the second thing is just take that action. This is, if you buy right, you can make a ton of mistakes and still be okay. And back to making sure that it's going to cash flow, but you can survive some vacancy. You can survive some bad rehabs. There are things you can go through and still be okay, but you're going to learn so much when you get started. And when we started, we intentionally self-managed so that we would learn the business and we would understand what it takes to manage tenants and how do you market a property and how much upkeep is there really going to be, because it felt like have to learn the ins and outs of the business in order to ever one day be able to step away from it. So just start taking that action and learn it by doing it. Just
do it. Yep. That's the common answer for that question. So pay attention, guys. Just go out there and do it. Go make it happen. It really is. That's what you got to do. So
I remember when we bought just a quick story. We bought our first fourplex, and it's sort of a B- area. And I can remember, pulling up to it after just having closed on it and almost being intimidated and a little bit scared. Like, what did we just do? I have no idea what we're doing. I'm going to walk up here and introduce myself. I didn't know to get an introduction from the previous owner. I just was walking into a totally unknown space and then felt, intimidated walking up and knocking on these doors to start this whole process. And I laugh about it every time I pull up to that property now, but it was like, had uneasiness in my stomach, had butterflies in my stomach. It's like, what are we doing? And now, it's just we've hit our stride and understand the business. And it's because we took that action and that first step.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's a great example. So is it just you and your brother? Are there any other people on your team? Have you brought some other people in? Talk about team for a second.
Yeah, no, it's just us. I mean, we've built, we've got a team of contractors and, the ones that are being managed. We've obviously got property management, team in place there. But, day to day, sort of looking at deals, evaluating, building relationships with banks, et cetera. It's just the two of us.
Great. So you're out there doing that. You're going talking to banks and developing, because, guys, this is a relationship business. That's so critical that you get out there and develop those relationships. They can make all the difference. So you're doing that. That's great.
100%. It's a relationship business, and I think it's a local business. That right. Each city has its own set of players, and you build the networks in the places you want to play.
Yep. Great advice. Great advice. So let me ask you this. Maybe you can share maybe your greatest victory story on a purchase and maybe a war story, a story where you got your butt kicked, your nose bloodied, or whatever, a mistake you may have made. Do you have
Sure.
examples you can think of?
Well, I do. We'll start with the downside, so we ended on a high note.
All right,
we call it a near miss. So we've been buying these in our names, and my brother had a fourplex property under contract and got kind of to the 11th hour, and they said, "Hey, you can't close. There's been a ding on your credit, and we're not going to be able to close the loan." It turns out he had some old credit card that he didn't pay attention to that had some recurring. It was literally a $1 fee.
Wow.
And it had dropped his credit down, and they weren't going to give him a loan. So, we scrambled, and because we're using the same agent, called me, and we were able to transfer it into my name and get it closed and save the earnest money and just abided by the terms they had. And it turned out it's sort of a joke now that, it's sort of in my name versus his. But it was a very near miss and almost a really costly mistake, because it's been a fantastic property and, has appreciated a bunch and cash flows, $1,400-1,500 a month. So it's been, that was a very near miss and almost very costly.
Wow.
I think on the positive side, we've got, some of our first deals actually turned out to be really, really good. The very first duplex we bought, paid $212,000 for it. We put about $20,000 into it and fixing it up. And again, leveraged the team of our realtor. He had guys that could come in and do the work. And last year we did a refinance and pulled out some of the equity, and it appraised for $365,000. So we were able to pull all of the money we had in that property out to go fuel more acquisitions.
Wow.
And that was just been a great deal.
Awesome. If you could go back in time, what would you tell your younger self about getting into this business?
Yeah, I wish that, like everybody else, that we had started sooner. Just not being. I wouldn't change the path that we were on, because I think now our sort of purpose and our why is so clear to us. And having gone through the things we did, like that's given us the focus. But I wish we'd have started earlier, and I wish we passed on some deals because we were afraid of, the rehabs, or we were afraid of the areas a little bit more. And I think we just didn't have the confidence early on to, we can go into, maybe it's a little bit rougher area and know that we can still manage our property effectively, and that can be a winner. That we passed on some deals looking back on it that, man, we'd have made so much money on. So just have the confidence again to, like, just stretch your comfort zone constantly every day, like just beyond what you think you can do.
That's great advice. I tell people, build your competence as much as you can by book study and being out there kicking the tires, so that it ultimately builds your confidence, which in turn will develop your intuition, and you'll know, what you can handle and what you can't handle, what area is a good area, what's a good deal. You'll just know because you're consciously competent. Anything else you could expand on that might add value that you can think of?
I think that going back to sort of our origins, we were looking for passive income, and I think just the whole notion of passive is a bit of a fallacy. That we are very active in the business, and my wife jokes that I've got 2 full-time jobs, and his wife tells him the same thing. But it doesn't feel like working. To your earlier comment,
no.
Get into this business because there's so much benefit to it. There's financial benefit. There's just the joy of building something and seeing a portfolio being built. But it's not a hands-off business. You need to be in it every day, a lot every day. We spend hours every day, at night and in the mornings and everywhere in between, working on it.
Right.
To where it's grown into that obsession and passion that's going to be the next chapter of what we do with Wildhorn Capital.
Well, I will tell you something, and just for the people that are thinking, oh boy, this is going to be a lot of work. Andrew, when you start your own property management company and you have someone managing these properties for you, particularly when you stop acquiring, and there'll be a point at some point in everybody's life they stop acquisitions. When that happens, it really is not a lot of work, particularly if you've got somebody handling the management for you. I mean, I'm just telling you from experience. So know that. Yes, you'll get a call occasionally, but it won't be the level of work that you're dealing with now. But listen, Andrew, thank you so much for being on the show. Say hello to your brother, Mark, and I really appreciate you adding value to my listeners today.
I've enjoyed it, Rod. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, take care.
Thank you for listening to the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe and then take a moment to visit iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and review. For more resources to connect with us further, please visit our website at lifetimecashflowpodcast.com. Tune in next week for our next show.